It's a routine commercial flight, one of thousands that take off daily. The aircraft, a Boeing 777, is cruising steadily at 35,000 feet, its passengers enjoying the in-flight service. In the cockpit, the captain and first officer run standard system checks. They adjust the autopilot, ensuring the plane stays on course. The skis are clear, and everything seems normal. Suddenly, without warning, the captain clutches his chest and slumps forward. His co-pilot, shocked, immediately tries to check on him. But within moments, the first officer's vision blurs and he too loses consciousness. Now, the aircraft is in the air without anyone at the controls. At first, the passengers and flight attendants notice nothing unusual. The plane remains steady, thanks to autopilot, which is programmed to maintain altitude and heading. But something is wrong. There's radio silence from the cockpit. When the flight attendants try to reach the pilots via the intercom, there is no response. The cockpit door is locked from the inside. A routine flight has just become a high-stakes emergency. How could both pilots pass out at the same time? While rare, history has shown several possible causes. Sudden cabin depressurization. If the aircraft loses cabin pressure, oxygen levels drop dramatically. Within seconds, pilots can suffer from hypoxia, a condition that causes confusion, loss of coordination, and eventually unconsciousness. Carbon monoxide or toxic fumes. A hidden electrical fire or a fuel leak can produce odorless, deadly fumes that can incapacitate the crew without warning. Food poisoning. Airlines serve different meals to pilots to reduce the risk, but on rare occasions, contaminated food or drinks could make both pilots too sick to function. Medical emergencies. Pilots are human too. They can suffer heart attacks, strokes, or aneurysms mid-flight. If the second pilot attempts CPR or struggles with the shock, they might also pass out. Whatever the reason, the end result is the same. The cockpit is now silent, and the plane is flying without human control. Luckily, commercial planes are designed to fly themselves, at least for a while. Once engaged, autopilot will keep the aircraft at a steady altitude, on its programmed course, balanced, avoiding sudden turns or dives. But autopilot has limits. It can't detect that both pilots are unconscious, respond to emergency messages from air traffic control, land the plane on its own unless pre-programmed. Meanwhile, passengers in business class and economy remain unaware of the crisis unfolding just behind the locked cockpit door. But the flight attendants begin to suspect something is wrong. It has been too long without any communication from the pilots. They knock on the door. No answer. Now, they must act fast before the plane drifts into danger. The lead flight attendant tries calling the cockpit through the intercom. No response. She knocks again, harder this time, still silence. Emergency protocol activates. The crew must assume the pilots are incapacitated. The only way into the cockpit is using the emergency access code. But if the pilots had previously locked the cockpit from inside as a security measure, the crew cannot enter. If they can get inside, they find both pilots unconscious. Immediately they check. Are they breathing? Can they be revived? Is there any medical professional on board who can assist? If neither pilot can be revived, there is only one option left. They must contact Air Traffic Control, ATC, for immediate help. Flight attendants are trained in emergency procedures, but they are not pilots. Some might have basic cockpit knowledge, but flying a commercial jet is extremely complex. The only real solution: get instructions from air traffic control. ATC will guide the crew to turn on cockpit radios to communicate. Leave autopilot engaged to prevent accidental loss of control. Prepare for an emergency landing at the nearest airport. If a backup pilot or off-duty crew member is on board, They would be called forward immediately. Otherwise, the crew is left with a terrifying reality. Someone will have to land the plane without any experience. Now, air traffic controllers become the plane's only lifeline. ATC scrambles pilots on the ground to talk the crew through. Steering the plane, adjusting speed and altitude, lining up with a runway for landing. Meanwhile, emergency teams at the destination airport prepare for the worst. Fire trucks, ambulances, and police are on standby. This is one of the most extreme situations ATC ever deals with. What if a passenger had to step into the cockpit? It sounds impossible, but it has happened before. In 2019, a passenger with zero training successfully landed a small plane with ATC guidance. But a commercial jet is far more complex. ATC would instruct them to keep autopilot on until near the airport, gradually slow down and descend, use automatic landing systems if available. A successful landing is not guaranteed, but survival chances increase dramatically with ATC's help. As the plane approaches the runway, ATC gives step-by-step instructions. Reduce speed. Deploy landing gear. Use auto brakes to slow down. A hard landing is expected, but as long as the aircraft touches down intact, lives can be saved. The plane bounces slightly, tilts, but then slows to a halt. The entire cabin erupts into cheers and tears. They have survived. Once the plane is safely on the ground, emergency teams rush into action. Medics reach the cockpit, reviving the pilots, who may have suffered from oxygen deprivation, poisoning, or a medical episode. The flight data recorder, black box, will later reveal exactly what happened. Pilot incapacitation is extremely rare, but it has happened. 2005, Helios Airways Flight 522, oxygen loss caused pilots to pass out. The plane crashed after running out of fuel. 2023, TUI Airways, a pilot collapsed mid-flight. The co-pilot landed safely. Airlines prepare for every scenario, making modern commercial aviation the safest form of travel.